Now, so I say 1 to 2 years from the time you do your first deal, do people quit their jobs? And that is true. But what's interesting is you can time it earlier than that. I call it the time to freedom clock, and that starts ticking before the first deal. It actually starts when you decide to get started with multifamily. One of my favorite quotes is by Tony Robbins, who said, "It is in your moments of decision that your destiny is shaped." And it's so true for many things in life, but in particular about multifamily investing. In fact, when I ask most people, hey, do you remember the exact moment when you decided to shift to multifamily? And they think about it for a second, and they invariably say, yes, I remember the exact time I decided to shift to multifamily. Now, for example, in my book, Financial Freedom with Real Estate Investing, that I just mentioned, I tell you the story about Brad in the introduction. And I'm going to read this story from the introduction because it makes my point so much. Okay, so here's story time with Uncle Mike. All right, here's what it says. Brad Tasha had done everything right. He went to school, got good grades, and then got a good job with benefits working for an established car parts manufacturer in Detroit. He thought he was living the good life, and then the recession hit his world like a hurricane. Coworkers, friends, and neighbors were being laid off all around him. Would he be next? If he lost his job, would he provide for his family? Panic seized him, and he couldn't sleep at night. It was a tough time for Brad, but he was lucky. He kept his job through it all. Still, it left a bad taste in his mouth about the security, air quotes, of a job. The certainty he had had about his financial future was shaken to the core, and he and his wife started thinking about a plan B. So they came up with a plan to buy one rental house per year for 10 years, which would then replace their income. They decided to direct the majority of their savings in 401k to buy these rentals. In the aftermath of the recession, the rentals in Detroit were cheap, but still had good cash flow. So over the next 5 years, they managed to buy 5 of these rental properties per plan. But around this time, things got busy for Brad at work, and he was routinely working more than 50 hours a week and sometimes on call after hours and during weekends. He started to miss his family. Everyone had thought his work schedule was a temporary phase. One night, he put his 4-year-old daughter to bed, and she asked him if he had to work the next day. As he answered yes, he could see her face drop with disappointment. That was Brad's breaking point, the one I'm talking about right now. He needed to accelerate his 10-year retirement plan, and he needed to do it fast, or he was going to miss his daughter growing up. So Brad shifted his real estate investing strategy. In the next 2 years, Brad covered his living expenses using that strategy and was able to quit his job. And since leaving this job, of course, Brad's been sleeping better, eating better, and he started exercising. He's able to spend time with his family, and they frequently go on vacation. His relationship with his wife has improved in many ways, and he's getting to know his daughter. Not having to work all day long has opened him up to think more intentionally about his life. Now, I didn't say in here what that strategy was that he switched to, but of course it was apartment buildings. It's just an example of where people know exact moment when they shifted to multifamily. And from that moment on, they're literally 2 to 3 years away from quitting their job. It is so fundamental. What happens, you can always tell someone who's made a decision to move forward by the action they take. Because if you already decided something, you have no choice but to take action. There's probably another 9 examples of the law of the first deal in the book I was just reading from, and dozens of examples on our podcast, this one, that you listen to right now. Just go back in the archives. And it's the same thing over and over again. That course I was talking about, The Ultimate Guide, has helped thousands of people, and we are just relaunched it again. It's called Dealmaker Certification. It's completely new. Everything's new in the course. I look a little older than the one the first time I did, but we completed some of the holes in there, tightened up some of the things. We updated all of our templates and checklists and everything. But we're even going a step further in that Dealmaker Certification, because we were wondering, how could we provide a more complete experience that takes someone from knowing a little, if anything, about multifamily, to not just the knowledge, but getting confidence and the skills to close their first deal. And of course, if you do that, that triggers the law of the first deals and ensures they're well on the way to living financial free in the next 23 years. So the answer to that is a Dealmaker Certification. If you listen to episode 262, the previous one, then you might remember the Dealmaker Blueprint. And that blueprint is something that we've combined over the last 5 years into a proven system to help people become financially free with real estate in 1 to 3 years, even without experience or cash. And it's really part of this Dealmaker Certification that leads you to the first deal, that really focuses on the 3 main outcomes, which is, how do I find deals? How do I raise money? And then number 3, which is even parallel, how do I partner? How do I find partners who can help me do bigger deals faster and scale the business? Because when you partner with others, it really opens up the doors to more and bigger deals. We talk a lot about that on the podcast as well. And Dealmaker certification gives you the knowledge you need. So knowledge is very important, and it replaces our previous course. But it's nothing if you don't turn it into action. And that was maybe a little bit of a missing piece there, because you can watch a course or attend a seminar, but what is that connection to take action for what you learn? And that's where we've kind of added this certification process. And through the certification process, we give you small tasks to do in the right order that you can do in your spare time. Small tasks you can do every single day, every single week. And if you follow this process, you'll complete your certification in about 90 days. And what's interesting is by the time you're done completing these small little tasks every single day, every single week, you'll be what I call deal ready. And deal ready, here's what I mean, that you first of all have all the knowledge, you know everything you need to know to do your first apartment deal. But more importantly, through these tasks that we give you to do, you start developing skills, which then leads to the confidence to speak with brokers and investors. And then third, you have your team ready to go on the ground. And you can use all of this knowledge and confidence and team to now go out and find deals, raise capital, and find partners, because now people will take you seriously. So basically, what we want to do with the certification is get you ready to do your deal on your own. But there's one third thing that we felt was important, and that was we don't want to leave you all alone. We want to give you some kind of support. So with our, we've had our Dealmaker Mastermind community for years. There's several hundred people who are paid to be there, and it's this online community of like-minded entrepreneurs who want to do the same thing, or maybe some of you already have. And this is people where you can find potential partners, deals, and capital. And we kind of incorporate that into the entire Dealmaker certification process. So you get an entire year included in this program, because we want to make sure you're supported. So you can find out more about all this stuff at dealmakercertification.com. I hope you check it out, because I'm really excited about this. And check it out, see if it's right for you as your guide to doing your first deal, so that you too quit your job in the next 2 to 3 years like so many others have before you. I know the system works. It worked for me. It worked for dozens and dozens of other people. And I know you can do it. Now is the time. It's the best time ever to do it. All right, y'all. I am Michael Blanc, and I hope to catch you on the next episode.